I always try to do something productive on my commute to work. Read a book, think something through, do some research, and so on. At least that's what I like to tell myself. But it's not always easy to organize your thoughts when you're heading somewhere you often don't really want to be. In fact, the approaching start of work often takes up so much of your mind that it becomes difficult to really let your thoughts wander freely and come up with something worthwhile. So, to be honest, I often don't do something productive on my commute. 45 minutes. It takes me 45 minutes door to door. I think that's quite a long time. It adds up to an hour and a half a day on top of my working hours, without me getting paid for it. Now I could start with the old game and say that I don't want to complain, that I'm actually quite lucky, that I do enjoy parts of my job. And all of that is true somehow. Nevertheless, there are these large parts of the job that are simply exhausting and tedious. The ones that drain me, that keep me awake at night, that spill over into my days off. When I was still working full-time, I suffered physical consequences. A slipped disc and later dizziness and insomnia, to name but a few. So is it unreasonable of me to be thinking about how I can break free from this cycle, this hamster wheel that just keeps turning and turning, sometimes faster, then a little slower again? Sometimes you think it's actually quite pleasant here, and then it gets faster again and even more stressful than before. Just when you finally managed to relax a bit, you're bound to have even more on your plate a few days later. And that's no coincidence. That's just how the world of work operates. I've often referred to it as a gilded cage, as my job is still one that many others would probably love to do. But this isn't specifically about that job or any other job for that matter. For me, it's more about independence, about self-determination. Because I only have one life, and yes, I believe that you can find happiness without money and without material possessions, that happiness is something intangible. But at the same time, I'm a pragmatist. I have a child, I don't know how much longer the flat I live in will remain reasonably affordable to rent, and I need to think about my retirement. But I can't go back to full-time work either. I wouldn't be able to cope with it anymore. The cost is too high, and I know exactly what it entails. Part-time work, on the other hand, is just enough to get by, but not really enough to build up savings. So here's the dead end, and I'm looking for the way out. I did freelance work before I started this job, and even so I enjoyed it in many ways. In a certain sense, it's also a rat race. There are other commitments, even if they're more short-term and you're more your own boss. I don't want to completely rule out freelancing either, as I do enjoy it, but I feel I can't rely solely on it. Mainly because at the end of the day I want something else. To let my creative work flourish, making films, writing, sharing ideas. And this is very slowly getting to the crux of the matter. You want to be as free as possible in your creativity, and on the other hand, earn a decent income so you don't have to constantly worry about where the money for your next rent payment, let alone holiday, will come from. I can already hear the comments saying, "What on earth do you think you're on about?" and that life isn't a walk in the park. But I think these comments stem from a place of fear, which I totally understand on the one hand, but on the other hand, I think the clearer you become about what you want and what you don't want, the more you can actually achieve something different. And that kind of clarity is what really matters, because once you have it, everything else is just noise. And of course you still have to start, and of course it involves work. A lot of work, in fact, probably much more than I'm currently doing. But if I can link that work to a positive goal and do it for myself, then it feels so much easier than if I were just going through the same old motions to earn my monthly salary. I think it's worth trying to find out what it takes to make a living and lead a life doing what you really want to do. Flexible and setting your own goals and free to decide how to spend your time. I'm the sort of person who likes to think things through 1,000 times and tries to have clear strategies in place to minimize the chance of anything unexpected happening. But I've learned that sometimes you just have to get going. Or you could just carry on commuting. Sitting on a train that you aren't driving and whose destination you didn't really choose. Sometimes the view is lovely and there are nice people in the compartment, but most of the time it's just the same silent people with serious expression on their faces on their way to jobs they don't really want to do. So, no, better not.